military, you also marry into adventure, whether it's an unexpected orders, whether it's a deployment, or whether it's a PCS move around the globe. Military life is always an adventure. So we have a group of spouses here today to talk about how they have all managed to embrace the adventure in their own lives. So first of all, I want to ask just very simply, what do you love most about being a military spouse?
I think all the cool and amazing military spouses that I get to meet each and every duty station that we move to. And so you always find a group, and there's very strong and powerful, amazing spouses at each and every duty station, and you just find your clique, and that fulfills me. So
I like finding the hidden treasures in some of the duty stations, even though they seem like they might be just your middle class everywhere USA. There's always something unique, and I like tapping into that. Sometimes it takes you a little while to scratch deep into the surface to find it, and other times it's just, in Hawaii, it's pretty obvious. It's all good. But, some of the other areas take you find the little gems, but it's really rewarding when you do.
So what has been your biggest surprise as a military spouse? I mean, I think we all have an idea of what our lives are going to be like, and the military tends to throw you for a loop every chance it has. So what's been the biggest surprise, something that you didn't expect?
The biggest surprise for me was when we got stationed at Fort Gordon. My husband decided, hey, this is nice. We purchased a house. And so we thought for sure we were going to be there until he retired. And 1 year to the day that we moved into our perfect house in the perfect neighborhood for the perfect price, we got notified, your time is up here and you're going back to the area that you came from. So that was a really big surprise for me.
I actually grew up as a military kid, and I watched my parents go through 33 years, well, I wasn't there for all of them, but most of them, of military life, and I never thought it was something I would like. I swore I was never going to marry someone in the military, and my mom likes to hold that over my head now, that we've been married 14 years, but I'm surprised how much I love it, and I'm surprised how many good things there are about it. And there are hard things, and there are things that, I wish I could trade, but all in all, I love this life, and I love being a military spouse. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Certainly I wouldn't trade my husband. But the other spouses that I've met, back to what Christy said earlier, I love them all so much, and I've formed such meaningful bonds with people. Don't cry. That I don't think you have that opportunity necessarily in every other lifestyle to form those kinds of bonds with the people that your spouse works with, or their families. We're in a really unique situation where we're kind of grouped together in places far away from our families, and so we're just really lucky to have each other to support each other through this pretty cool, adventurous life that we lead.
My biggest surprise was probably that I've grown to enjoy moving. About every 2 years, I get antsy. I'm like, all right, time to go. Let's go to the next one. And I figured I'd be in one place, my whole life before meeting my husband, that it would be in one city. And so it surprised me. Like, we're on our 3rd year here, and I've been like, okay, time to go. Where are we going next? Which my husband laughs. He's like, you don't like any duty station. I'm like, no, a couple years, I'm good. It's time for the next one.
Okay, well, what has been one of the more challenging aspects of being a military spouse for any of you?
For me, it's been, so we move and we meet great people, and believe it or not, we're 11 moves in, and I still have a hard time leaving those old friends, because you have such deep and unique connections with those. At the same time, I'm ready to embrace, but it's almost like kids, trying to pick your friends, or, do you like me? And, things like that. So that, even still, and this is year 22 for me. Move number 11, and I still have a difficult time leaving
Well, how do
friends
you
behind.
overcome a challenge like that?
Just sticking myself out there. It's hard. I mean, I seem outgoing, but it is really hard to put myself out there because you don't know. I mean, you don't have to like everybody. Everyone doesn't. I love me, but everyone doesn't love me, and that's okay. So I just go out there and just whatever sticks sticks. So
What would you like other people outside of the military community to know about us and our lifestyle?
That we are awesome. Well, and I say this because one of my experiences in Alabama, we lived off post and in a great neighborhood, and I really wanted to get to know our neighbors, but they I think they didn't realize that they had a limited time, that we were only going to be there for a few years. And so I finally, after 2 years, got invited to the neighborhood cookie exchange, and I was so excited, and I brought like really good cookies. And then as soon as we were chatting a bit more, I said, oh, well, we are moving this summer. And I could see they all looked crestfallen. And I thought, well, you had 2 years with me. You could have gotten to know me. So, yeah, I think that they have to like jump in. We're not desperate and needy, but when we realize like, hey, I don't have a couple years to get to know you, let's do it now. Because I think that, everyone's lives would be enriched a little bit more.
I think for people outside of the military, what they see on TV most of the time is about deployments, and you see the videos of the reunions and all of that, and those are wonderful, but that is only a small part of what our life is. And so I think there's so much more to us than deployments, and I think a lot of the videos we're doing through this series are kind of showcasing some of the great stuff about being a military spouse that, outside of that.
Well, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about military spouses?
I think some of them think that, the military spouses, because of our lifestyle, that we're bossy, we come in, we want to take over, and that's just not the case. We are people that if we see something that needs to be done, we just do it because we have to depend on ourselves so much. And I think that's one of the biggest things that maybe causes people to kind of take a step back. It's like, oh gosh, here she comes. She's going to try to be in charge. But when no one else steps up and the military spouse does what she normally does, then she's given that label, which is wrong.
I think the other misconception is we're sitting at home and raising our kids and, watching the soap opera. We have a lot of great hidden talents. We're pretty awesome, and we bring a lot, to our communities, to whatever installation that we're on. So, someone on the outside may see a stay-at-home mom, but, or husband, but what they don't know is, she's a teacher, she's a nurse, entrepreneur, whatever, just because you see us in that moment does not define who we truly are. You have to dig sometimes, but, we do have a lot of hidden talents with us.
I would just like to add, I think oftentimes when military spouses are applying for jobs and positions, and I know legally, they're not allowed to ask how long you're going to be there, whatever. But a lot of times there's a misconception with military spouses. Well, she's a military spouse. She's only going to be here a couple of years. And, where I would choose to say this military spouse, if she's moved 8 different locations, she's interacted with 8 different types of people. She has created the skills from 8 different, recreating her family or recreating her volunteer skills at 8 different locations. So she will be bringing just so much to a job, to a position. And whereas, like, I'm not saying that somebody who has been at a small town or a local town, not that they couldn't provide those same views, but a military spouse brings a more worldly view sometimes to some positions.
I think too, especially the last decade or more, has the misconceptions become like we are so awesome. We take care of each other, and we don't want to be friends with people outside of the military now. So when we live off post and things like, they think that we have our own little community and network, so we don't want anything to do with them, and I that's wrong. We do. That support from them is actually really great too to have, I think, especially during the tough times and all, and to have that connection with the community. But I think I've come across where they just assume I don't want to be their friend either, because I should already have my own network and my own group together, you know.
Many militaries request to be stationed overseas. Why do you all feel these postings are so popular?
I think you get to see the world and not have to take it out of your vacation budget.
Yeah.
And if you have children, and even for yourself, it can be an absolute worldwide, to your point, experience. You know, it's one thing to read about France or Italy or Korea in a book, but to then walk it and see it and try new foods, it's just an experience that you really can't get without going somewhere else.
What piece of advice would you offer a young spouse who's about to PCS to a foreign location for the first time?
What I would say first is, please talk to your sponsor, get all the information, learn some of the language where you're going.
I think it's really important to get off base as soon as you can when you get overseas. Anyone I've met who lived overseas and is unhappy really doesn't get out and experience the local culture. So whether that's taking, a trip with the MWR or getting out there by yourself, you might get lost. I certainly got lost, but I knew not to get on that bus going that way when I ended up at the bus terminal. I knew how to get back to the base after I got lost. But I think the sooner you can do that when you arrive somewhere, the more time you have to embrace that experience, because you could potentially be wasting time if you're kind of waiting that out.
I think living overseas actually offers, we've been stationed 3 times in Germany and would go back again in a hot second. But especially when people get nervous about their kids and their family or, extended family, but it's such a golden opportunity for them as well. I know my daughter danced with the local Fasching team, which Fasching is like Carnival or Mardi Gras in Germany. And that was truly an experience to see how exactly that tradition was steeped into their culture. And then we've had lots of friends who their kids will be on local soccer teams, and they really get to form different relationships. And if you're going to be on a travel team, overseas is the way to go. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that people might not realize that they have there that are even better than maybe what they could have in the United States.
I would just like to add, as far as the actual PCS goes overseas, there's a whole lot of stress that comes along with that. And I can remember my husband, we've been overseas twice, and I can remember that first month I'm an extrovert by nature, but I didn't talk. And my husband called his mom and was like, I think she's gonna leave me. She's so sad, But it was, it's overwhelming. A lot of that stuff is overwhelming, and give yourself a little bit of time, because all of us we didn't just love it, bam, 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 off the bat. You gave yourself a little bit of time to get adjusted to the culture and to feel things out and lean on your military spouse friends who've already been there. And but just, know it's okay if you're just a little bit freaked out when you first go overseas.
How have overseas assignments affected your worldview and your view of other cultures?
As a military kid, having been overseas, I would say when I interact with friends or family who have never been outside the United States, my experience having had friends who talk different languages and ate different foods and practiced different customs in their house is just so much broader and less judgy. Because it's very easy to get judgy if you only read about it, see it on the news, hear about it in gossip circles. But if you know somebody who used to worship like that or went to church on a Saturday versus Sunday and it was a temple, you just have a broader perspective and, it's just different. And having experienced that as a kid, I think you grow up broader and less closed in and less judgy because you've seen things differently.
And so maybe you feel it helps your children as well.
Absolutely, because I experienced it first as a child. And so I grew up with a broader, which is why I probably signed up for the whole crazy military spouse thing in the first, because, because it'll be okay. We'll do things differently. We'll learn new things. You won't like everything. But because I had that experience as a kid, if you get to experience this as a parent, watching your children go through that can be phenomenal.
Plus, as an added bonus, I was also a military brat, and I found, and we lived overseas several times, I found that actually going through school was easier because I had already been to some of those places. So it wasn't imaginary. I could say, like, oh, I know what the Coliseum looks like. I know what, Guam, that landing strip looks like in Guam or whatever it is. So history was easier. So, maybe you get better grades. I don't know.
Okay, well, obviously, in order to get overseas, one must move overseas, which brings us to PCS moves. What is your number one PCS tip?
I will just say, in helping in the, I know this is going off a little bit. It's not like an actual like tape on the boxes or anything. But I think every single PCS move, we try to find the best. Like we went to Georgia, the best sweet tea. In Texas, we try to find the best ribs, and when we do that with our kids, my husband actually started it, and in Germany, the best gelato. So we ate a lot off of the beginning. I know that's not really a PCS tip, but it's our PCS tip to help our kids and to help us and to look forward to what are we going to find the best of here. And yes, we like food and drinks. Sorry, not to go off on a.
I think for us, something that made our moves a whole lot easier and that we got all our stuff was that we made sure that we had plenty of water, Gatorade, Powerade for the packers and movers, and we also provided them lunch. And so our stuff, we never have had anything damaged or missing. So that's if you do that, we learned that from, I want to say, transportation. If you take care of the movers, they'll take care of your stuff.
For me, I would say our number one hassle was always, I had fur babies before I had human babies, and we have big fur babies. So it would definitely be pets. Take care. It's going to take, the travel arrangements are going to probably be expensive. Well, at least they are when you have 250-pound dogs. And they're going to require extra paperwork. So dive into that early. Do not put that off until the last minute, and make sure you have arrangements for them both ways. And we never had an issue with it, but it does take some planning. So definitely put that on your calendar early.
And I think planning in general, there's a lot of things that, if you're moving now, for your kids, there's a lot of stuff to go ahead and get set up and registered for that's going on where you're going that you need to start looking at to make sure. A lot of places will allow, you come in August, you can get in, because you're military, but it's easier if you go ahead and start looking at those things, what teams are going to be available, and it helps the kids. Like my kids right now are looking forward to, okay, I'm going to be starting middle school, I'm going to be doing this there, and the differences and what's going to be new there, because we're already talking about that and planning for it and looking forward to those things versus like, oh man, we're moving again. We're finding those things that we can go ahead and be planning now, so they know when they walk in, they're going to meet people, they're going to have friends, they're going to be part of something.
So because military children obviously deal with a lot of change, how do you help your kids, particularly if they don't deal well with that change, get on board with that next move?
I try to research the activities on the other end and have those already set up. I mean, I have a kiddo that is EFMP and it doesn't always accept change that well. So I know that I have to have those things set up for her on the other end because we don't do boredom well and things like that. So I just getting those set up for her and talking with her about those things before we actually get there.
There's a lot of resources online now. I think that more and more agencies, civilian and military, overseas, or CONUS or OCONUS, have at least a point of contact where you can get a hold of somebody and they can tell you, oh, we'll need this extra paperwork or we don't, or, they can, it's expectation management. So a lot of times that's what we try and do too, is set the kids' expectations accordingly. But online has helped. I mean, internet has helped a lot. I sound ancient now, but yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but.
I want to piggyback off of Meredith and what she said about getting your kids engaged. As parents, our kids listen to us a lot. So if you're headed to somewhere you're not really happy about, be mindful of what you say about that place around your kids, because they will take on your feelings. And even little ones that you think can't understand what you're saying, just when you hold them, your negative energy projects onto them. So there's been a couple times I didn't like where we're headed, but my kids always thought I was excited about where we're headed. So be mindful about that, because that would help them embrace it versus going into something, already feeling, negative and withdrawn. So
When you think of your most successful transition, PCS move, what did you do to set yourself up for success there? If you've had a success.
For me, I would say I pre-planned. I'm a list maker. So the minute I hear where we're heading, I start thinking about, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this. And it's a false sense of control. I acknowledge that. However, being able to check boxes and feel like I'm not doing things last minute puts me calmer, my energy's better, and so I think I handle it better. And so if I'm at a better space, I feel like the move was more successful than if I'm doing things last minute, because I've been prepared, and then you get a new place, and on those moves, I hate it because I'm last minute, I'm rushed, I feel like I'm leaving things off the table. So being prepared as soon as possible, and it could be my hour from 8 to 9. This is when I do PCS stuff, and then I move on. But if I do that soon enough, I feel like I'm in more control.
What resources do you use to research a new duty station?
The internet, which is our friend. But I also go to the new duty station's website and get information from there. I search and see if they have an FRG, and if so, try to get information off that, as well as MWR, just to kind of get a feel of what's going on.
And these ladies would be who would I ask first? Like, hey, so we just found out we're going there. Who's been there?
Yeah.
That's the first thing I would do. You get more information that way than anything else.
I think you have to expect the unexpected. The second you think you know exactly how it's going to play out is the day the Army changes its mind on you, or something crazy happens. So I'm a planner, so this is hard for me. This is a hard way for me to go, but usually I make a plan and then another plan and then adjust that plan a little bit and then go back to the first plan. So even if it doesn't work out exactly the way I thought it was, I'm kind of mentally preparing myself for all of the possibilities, and then the possibilities you don't know are possibilities.
And I think that too I think this has just happened from being married to my husband almost 20 years, is I originally was a planner, now not so much, but I think it's just my personality. I've just come to the fact that, my staff's going to get there. We're going to get to the next duty location. I can, be all uptight and be all stressed out, or I can go into this and be like, it's going to get there. We're going to get there. I'm going to get there. It's all going to get there. Some of it might be broken. Some of it might be whatever, but, and I think it's just an attitude, is, a way that you choose to slide into the next duty station.
So how do you make wherever the Army sends you, or the military, how do you make that place feel like home?
I think one thing, and it ties to your last question as well, is every post has a Facebook group, has an Instagram feed about the people who live there or who have lived there. So if your things is Hobby Lobby, Home Goods, setting up your house, then you hop on there, become a member of them, ask them where the best shops are, where are the sales, so you can do that for yourself. If you know your thing is restaurants, like I'm not going to feel like this is really our place until I eat at least a steak, then you hop on there before you even get there and have your list for what's going to work for you, because there's always somebody who that's their thing too, who knows more because they've been there before, like you were saying. Ask people who've been there, or you can ask people who are there right now by hopping on the face groups on Facebook and all the other websites that they have.
I'd like to say too, we have, as far as your home setting it up, when the kids were little, I just have a black and white picture wall, and it's usually on the stairs or it's in an area, and I add to it every year. So each time we move, that's one of the first things that goes up is the pictures, the black and white pictures. And so the kids automatically start feeling like that's home, and then their rooms are also done up first so they can with some of the same things. And so that has been consistent for us, and that's been the one thing that's worked for us, and it's helped my kids feel more at home in a new home. So
How do you maintain family and cultural traditions when you're away from your home, when you're away from your hometown, extended family, that type of thing?
So, you guys have heard now, I feel like a broken record with Germany, but our first duty station was overseas. And so, as newlyweds, that was a little bit daunting at times. But we found, and now it's something we celebrate every year. It's more of a Friendsgiving for Thanksgiving. Yes, our families, will come and they're always invited, but sometimes you just can't make it because it's too expensive. And so I love to cook, and sometimes my cooking wasn't that great. I served mashed potatoes one time with no butter. It was horrible. But you invite your friends and the other people that aren't making it back, be single soldiers or other couples, and you make new traditions. And I think that that's something that we've really embraced and now really look forward to. So it just becomes something new. So that's what we did.
And my mom, I know, has passed some things down to my kids that maybe when she was visiting, she started, which is wonderful. I got to then keep them up for the next several years. But it gives them that sense of, well, this is something Nana started. This is something we do that we got from her. And so we have little things like that from both sides of our families that we make sure we incorporate into the holidays or birthdays or anything that they know, came from our family, that they never get to see really, but that they know they're still a part of and still love them. My sister-in-law, my brother will send certain things or FaceTime at a certain time so that they know they're still connected. There's still that connection to our family.
To add on to that, we use FaceTime a lot. In my house, we celebrate both Christmas and Hanukkah. So on the first night of Hanukkah every year, we FaceTime with my parents and light the first candle on the menorah. And that's how they keep that connection with my parents as well. And that side of their, of that culture and tradition. So, technology is great.
True. Do you find that being a military family makes you value things differently or prioritize things in your life differently?
I would say absolutely. Because you can have the worst day ever, the commissary was closed, your car broke down, the kid can't find their homework, whatever it is, but you have the experience and knowledge to know nothing's really blowing up in a literal sense. Nobody's shooting at you. Everybody's going to come home, be safe. And so it gives you a different perspective of that quote, don't sweat the small stuff, right? It's just what's really emergency and tragedy changes your perspective of what's really emergency or a tragedy because you have experienced some real ones. And so it does allow you to, for those type A type people, a bit of a relaxing because it's really not that bad. It really is not, and you can only get that when you're in this type of world or police or firemen or something where real life and death is real life and death.
Most military spouses can name their favorite duty station. Do you think that is typically because they love the location or because they love the people at that location? Or maybe both?
People. I think it really is the people. You can live in a really cool place like Germany and all, but it still could be a really bad experience if you don't have the people around you. and you don't have that community around you. So I think that's still, location can be great. We've never gotten to go overseas, so I bet it's awesome. We try every time. But I've also lived in the worst place at Fort Irwin, and what made it wonderful was the other women and the families we were around and the community and neighborhood that we had. Like, you have nothing else out there, so it also was a really fun place, though, because we did everything together and had a great time. There was parties all the time. But so I think the people make the difference.
I think it's actually a little bit of both, because you can be in a great place and have the opportunity to do a lot of great things and go a lot of great places. But if you don't have, someone other than your spouse and your kids to enjoy it with, to make the videos with, to talk about after you come back, it's kind of like, we went there. It was okay. Yeah, look, we got pictures. But the experience wasn't that enjoyable.
What do you do for yourself and for your families to embrace each new duty station and each new adventure?
She talked about it. We do the same thing, kind of have a little checklist of something that each person in the family wants to do while we're there. So when we check it off, kind of either mentally, or sometimes we've had a little whiteboard where you can physically check it off. And that seems to work for us.
My kids and I have lots of food allergies, so literally food is a big issue everywhere we go. And it's one of the first things, because as much as they love my cooking, they enjoy going out quite a lot. So the first things, when they know there's restaurants that we can go eat at that are safe for them, and that immediately changes their perspective on a location.
Thank you, ladies. This has been wonderful, and we all know military life is an adventure, and thank you for sharing your ways of helping to embrace that adventure.